Hello my kings and queens, and welcome back to my channel, Joy to the World. I'm Joy, also known as Sav, also known as Savvy, also known as Savannah, also known as Vanna, also known as whatever it is you want to call me, as long as it's not derogatory, okay? Okay. Today's video is going to be all about my rose infused oil. If you're wondering what that is, this is it. I'm going to show you all. What exactly is rose oil? Rose oil, well, rose infused oil is basically oil that I have allowed rose petals to basically steep in for a number of days. So just to let you all know, this right here is not to be confused with rose hip oil. Rose hip oil is actually derived from the seed and the fruit of the rose plant, while rose oil, rose infused oil, it gets its beneficial properties from the petals. So that is the difference between rose hip oil and infused rose oil. So like I said, it's not to be confused with rose hip oil. This is rose infused oil. I literally got the beneficial properties from the roses by it soaking in oil. So I'm sure you all are wondering, what does this do? What is it good for? What do you use it for? You can use it for a multitude of things as far as beauty is concerned. The main things that I plan on using it for is primarily skincare as well as hair care. And if you all don't know about the beneficial properties of rose oil for your hair and skin, I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all, let y'all know a little something, something. For your skin, rose oil is a very good antiseptic. What? Jesus, I can't talk today. It also works well as an anti-inflammatory. It has antifungal properties as well, and it leaves the skin really, really moisturized, and it gives your skin a really good, even glow. It also leaves your skin kind of feeling not like exactly like a rose petal, but it gives, you know, that smooth, soft, silky kind of feeling. And as far as for your hair, rose oil is good for adding luster to your hair as well as promoting hair growth. And because it has antifungal properties as well, it's really good for your scalp. It helps keep your scalp really healthy. So the main reason why I wanted to try and make this is because I am so big into natural hair care and natural skincare. There's so many times when you look at the back of a product that's meant to go on your skin or on your hair and you can't even pronounce not just one but a plethora of the ingredients that are even in the substance that you're trying to use. And I don't know about you all, but I personally don't feel comfortable using something that I can't even pronounce. I don't even know what it is. I've basically just been taking my time trying to figure out what natural remedies and what natural things go well with my hair as well as my skin. And this past Mother's Day, I was given a beautiful arrangement of flowers. This is the remainder of it. I've been holding on to it as long as I can. But it came with roses. So I thought it would be a really good opportunity for me to try making this rose infused oil. And so that's what I did. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the DIY video. And I'm going to show you all how I made my personal rose oil. I hope you all really gained something from this video. And if y'all end up using this video to make your own rose infused oil, let me know in the comments like how it turned out, or hit me up on my social medias and send me links of you making your own rose oil, or just let me know how it turns out, because I would most definitely love to know, especially if you use the same technique that I did. Like I said, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this video. Make sure you like, comment, share my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, I want to go ahead and tell you all thank you again for returning to watch my content, and hit me up on my socials if there's ever anything that you want to see me make content about. Yeah, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Talk to y'all later. All right, you all, before we even get into the rose infused oil making process, we're going to need to clean our roses since they are store-bought. If you have organic roses, you can skip this step, you know, considering that organic roses don't have all the pesticides and whatnot. But what you're going to need is a medium to large bowl, baking soda, distilled or spring water, roses, and chopsticks, which are optional. As you can see, I have a pair of beautiful magenta roses. They're not really the freshest, but they're not completely, dead either. As you can see, I'm just taking the petals off the stem. And I chose to use spring water instead of distilled water just because I didn't have any distilled water at the time, and I didn't want to use tap water. Spring water still has, a lot of natural minerals in it that your body needs, so I figured it couldn't hurt. And as you can see, I'm using the chopsticks just to poke the roses, make sure that they're saturated, or at least some type of submerged in the water. Rose petals float. Just gotta make sure that they're wet. I'm gonna do the same with this rose. Just pull the petals off. I realized I needed a bigger bowl, so I just transferred everything to a bigger bowl. He loves me not. He loves me not. And it's time to add the second bottle of water. And I'm just gonna, like I did earlier, just poke them. Make sure that they get good and wet. And the baking soda is going to work as our cleaning agent. You don't want to put too much. You don't want to put too little, just enough. I didn't really measure anything. Swirl it around. Make sure all the petals get covered in the water baking soda solution. You want to make sure there's no pesticides in your roses. Well, in your rose petals. And I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes and let them soak. Alright, so what you're going to need for your rose infused oil is the cleaned rose petals, a carrier oil, a heat resistant mason jar, a pot, a mesh strainer, an essential oil that's optional, and chopsticks. So I'm using avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, and walnut oil as my carrier oils. And I'm also going to use a couple drops of tea tree oil. And that's going to be really good for my scalp whenever I choose to use it for my scalp and my hair. So you're just going to open the mason jar, and you're going to take the rose petals and just place it in the jar. You basically can put as many as you want because we're gonna end up straining them out later. Of course, the more petals, the more potent your oil will be, the more aromatic your oil will be. Make sure I get every little petal. Alright, so this is a step that I chose to do personally. I just sat there and I stabbed the rose petals with the chopstick, And if you can see, I'm literally penetrating, pause, the rose petals. And that is just to release some of the essence of the rose, some of the aroma of the rose, so it can get into that oil and steep into it a little bit better. You could probably also use like a muddle for this step, or just rip them apart, but I chose to use this method. So as far as the oils, I did not measure. I just literally poured a little bit and then go to the next oil, pour a little bit, next oil, pour a little bit, and I just layered it over and over until the jar was full. So that's how much olive oil I've put into the jar. I'd say it's like a fourth of the way full of olive oil. Maybe a little less. And then I'm going to get my avocado oil and I'm going to pour that in next. Just about the same amount. Then I'm going to pour in some walnut oil. And all three of these oils have really good benefits as far as your skin and your hair. You know, just look it up. And I basically just repeat this process over and over. Olive oil, avocado oil, walnut oil, avocado oil. Olive oil, avocado oil, walnut oil, and over again. And like I say, you're going to repeat this step until the jar is full. And then the last thing that I added was the tea tree, just because essential oils have the capabilities of being an irritant if you use too much of them. So I just wanted to only add a couple of drops. Make sure that lid is on good and tight. Give it a good shake. I noticed some oil was coming out, so I had to wipe that off. So at this point, I realized, hey, I could put some more oil in here. So I just basically repeated what I just did and just layered some more oils in there. So basically, you just want to make sure that the petals are completely submerged in your carrier oils or oil. And then I added a little bit more tea tree, a couple drops. And make sure you put your lid on really tight. Look at that, beautiful. All right, so hopefully while you were doing that, you had a pot of water on the stove. You want to get it to the point where it's like simmering, not boiling yet. And you're going to put the jar in the pot. Make sure that the mason jar that you have is heat resistant, because you don't want to, have an explosion of glass or anything. And I eventually realized that I didn't have enough water in the pot. You want the water to cover as much of the jar as possible. So basically I let it simmer in this pot for 30 minutes. And you can see the color of the rose petals changed. You can see the bubbles in the oil. All the nutrients is leaving the petals and going into the oil. So what you're going to do is leave it in the water. You're going to turn the heat off on the stove, and you're going to leave it in the water until the water cools off completely. After your jar cools off, you're going to get some fresh petals that you set to the side earlier, and we're going to put those in the jar after we strain out these soggy rose petals. As you can see, they've lost their color. They've became a little translucent. And even though it's not really hurting the oil, it just doesn't look pretty. So this step is kind of for aesthetic purposes. It's not necessary. And you see, for this step, all you're going to need is a strainer and a bowl. And of course, your rose infused oil. So what you're going to do is you're just going to open the jar. And you're going to strain your rose oil through the strainer. Get those soggy rose petals out. Make sure you get every little drop. So then you're going to get your chopsticks again. And you're going to sit there and just kind of poke at the soggy rose petals. You just want to make sure that all that oil that's adhered to the petals goes through the strainer so you can just get all of your product. As you can see, I'm just mashing the petals up against the strainer, getting a few more drops of oil out. I'm sorry if you all hear music in the background. It's my neighbors. So after you've sat there and squeezed all the oil out of the petals that you could, you're going to just dispose of the soggy petals. We don't need those anymore. And that's your beautiful rose oil. Look at it. So what you're going to do is you're just going to pour it back into the jar. And I'm just making sure, once again, I get every little drop. So what you're going to do is grab your chopstick again. And I'm just repeating what I did earlier. I'm puncturing the rose petals, just to release more of the essence of the rose. And I do that with all the petals. And not only is this really for aesthetic purposes, this also helps with making your rose infused oil a little bit stronger, because even though you're not putting the jar in heat for a second go round, it's still going to have the petals, of course, sitting in it, so it's still going to get some of that beneficial properties of the petals. So you're just going to put them in your rose oil. Make sure you get the rest of your oil. Put the lid on. And what you're going to want to do is let this sit in a cool, dark place for a couple of days. Really let those rose petals infuse that oil. And then you'll be able to use it for your skincare regimen or to oil your scalp, whatever have you. I love how beautiful it looks. But thank you all so much for watching my video. Follow me on all my social medias and let me know if you all tried this yourselves. Let me know how it turned out. Let me know how it worked for you. Yeah.